folks. It's 2 p.m. It's Thursday. I'm Fred McMurray, which means this must be...
Pillars, pillars, pillars of franchising. Pillars, pillars, pillars of franchising.
It's that time again, Elizabeth. You and I today. How are we doing?
We're doing well after our week off. How was your week off last week?
Week off? Huh? What?
Well, from the show.
Okay,
We took a
from the
week off
show.
from the show.
I honestly spent most of my week pounding away on getting the new artist site, artistu.com, up and running. It's up and running. We're accepting applications for artists, and the next live festival is August 22nd, 23rd. So with everyone gone, I got to focus on a non-franchise project. What about you?
That's fun. We spent Thursday through Monday moving my daughter. So we drove to Lexington, Virginia, packed her up, drove to Washington, D.C., unpacked her, drove back to Lexington to get her car that's giving her some issues, and then drove 2 cars home from Lexington to Alabama. So we packed a lot in a few days, and we are then jumped straight into our weeks. So we're a little tired, but it was good. She's all moved in, hadn't seen her in several months, so all is well.
So what was traveling like in these COVID days and nights?
It was interesting. Alabama just started a mask mandate. And so on the way out of town, not a lot of masks here. Tennessee, nobody wore a mask. In Virginia, especially in the DC part, everybody had on a mask and was pretty conscious of social distancing. So it was kind of interesting. And then when we came back the other way, most of Alabama was wearing a mask. So I think people are trying to get this thing to stop. But it was not as bad as I thought. We didn't feel like we were exposing ourselves too much to people, and people were pretty respectful.
So what type of mask are you talking about?
A facial mask.
Like this?
So that you don't spread. Oh, no, we did not walk around in a gas mask. But maybe that would have been a good idea.
No fun whatsoever. Well,
I know,
gotta tell you,
sorry.
even around in California, I do get a few looks when I go in with the gas mask on. No one said anything.
I'm sure you do.
Because this is California, and so no one will say anything about anything. But I always like doing that every once in a while when I want to screw with people.
Yeah, shock value. That's your thing, isn't it, Fred?
Hey, if you can't get them to watch, you can't get them to listen, then you're alone. So,
Exactly.
It's the marketing
purpose
person
of life.
in me. So Ray is in Mount Rushmore. Sadly, while I wanted him to get the park service to, set up a special pavilion run internet in there and do a live broadcast from Mount Rushmore, Ray couldn't get it done. So he's just lost in the wilds of Mount Rushmore somewhere.
Well, I guess he deserves a little relaxation out in the nature. We'll give him a week off.
This is 2 weeks off.
So, Fred, how's the weather where you are? 2 weeks off. I know he's taking advantage a little bit, but that's okay. He's celebrating his engagement, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'll cut him that. I'll cut him slack there. Not a problem. So, you want to go to the Pillars of Weather, huh? It's actually beautiful. The background in my image is not representative of what it is. It's actually blue sky and sun out, but it did look that way this morning.
But it's beautiful right now, huh?
Yeah, low 70s.
Hot?
No. We
Low
get
70s.
low 70s. I mean, it's been in the low 70s most of the last week. We'll get a few hot days.
Yeah.
And I know what hot is. Sticky, 90 plus degree, Midwestern heat. Grew up in it.
Yeah.
It's never that sweaty, humid. It's just kind of the high baking heat when it gets to it. 10 days a week, 10 days
Yeah.
a year.
Well, we we were hot when we left Alabama last week, and it followed us to Virginia. It was 100 degrees the day that we were moving, and the heat index was something like 108, and it was just miserable. Then we came back, and we've had a little rain, so we're in the 80s actually today, but it's a sunny bright sky with rain. So I don't know what to do with that.
Who's our guest today?
Our guest today, let me bring him in, is David Keil. He is, here he comes. He is operating partner, president, and COO for Franworth. He brings franchising growth and leadership experience from brands like Pure Barr, Honey Baked Ham, Ecolab, Frito-Lay, and Haagen-Dazs. He's also an advisor to private equity firms, churches, business owners, multi-unit franchisees, and large-scale merger integration teams. He has an operations engineering degree from the University of Michigan and an MBA from the University of Kansas. And then he's got a lot of other exciting things going on that we're going to talk to him about throughout the interview. So Dave, welcome to the show.
Well, Dave, there we go.
All right.
Welcome to the show, Dave.
Hey, you got me unmuted. Thanks. Happy to be here. Life on Zoom, right?
Yeah, life on Zoom. We'll get it straight, right? Eventually.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Everybody's used to it. Yeah, absolutely. So tell us, just start us off with a little bit of your background before we get into some details, because I'm excited to talk to you about a lot of things that you've got going on. Oh, I forgot to ask you about your weather. I always do that.
Oh, yeah, the weather question. Thank you. I'm in Glen Arbor, Michigan, which, so those of us in Michigan, this is a representative of the state. Those of you on audio, I'm holding out my hand and pointing to the very top of my pinky finger. So that's where I am in Glen Arbor, Michigan. So it's a cabin we have up north. We live most of the time in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Home of
you want a lake up there?
Yeah, it's Glen Lake. So
nice.
It's a little lake with these big sand dunes. It's Sleeping Bear sand dunes. It's beautiful. And just Lake Michigan's just a few hundred yards that way. So way up on pretty lake, but right near the big lake. And it's a bluebird day, blue sky, 72 degrees, and things are good.
Perfect.
And that's a Miami hat, right?
So much better than the heat down here.
You're wearing a
Miami
hat.
So back to my other question. Go ahead. Give us a little. Sorry, Fred.
I was going to say, you're wearing a Miami hat, aren't you?
No, it's not a Miami hat. That's a University of Michigan hat. So I'm a Michigan grad, and big fan. Been my whole life. I came here to be an engineer and was gone some 35 years and just moved back to the state here about 2 years ago when I joined Franworth.
Nice. It is beautiful up there. My dad's from up there, and he actually played football for the University of Michigan.
All right.
Quite a few years ago. So we're big fans too. We have our Michigan attire.
Great. Well, I mean, the best part about it is just my best friends on the planet. I've met my wife there, so she was my college sweetheart, and now my wife of 32 years, and all my best buddies on the planet are from here. We've been together and done life together for 35 years. So that's if you can find a place like that, it's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, it is. And they're all mostly still up there.
No, they're scattered. I mean, all around the planet. Guys that are leading. I mean, unbelievable. This tight group of people. One, bank presidents and CEOs, and several of them retired as successful entrepreneurs. But scattered across the world now. But we tend to come back here at least once a year for a football game, and we get together once a year down in the Atlanta area or down in your neck of the woods, SEC country, for a little golf in the spring. But.
Nice. That's very nice. Well, speaking of COOs and CEOs, that describes you in your group of friends as well. So give us a little background on kind of your path, particularly through franchising and some of the things that you've done that have led you to Franworth.
Yeah, happy to do that. Thank you. So I started my career out of undergrad in Fortune 500 world. So I worked for 3 big companies and was just classically trained in how to lead. So Frito-Lay, General Mills, and then Ecolab. So all big Fortune 500 companies with great ways to be educated as a young leader. and just worked my way up through those organizations, had the opportunity to lead big divisions, had a chance to do a bunch of different jobs, mostly leadership roles. Did a bunch of mergers and acquisitions. I love the art of the deal, about bringing people together with different interests. And then along that way, did a deal, brought Ben and Jerry's together with Häagen-Dazs. I was on the Häagen-Dazs team, and then later put Nestle together with Häagen-Dazs in a joint venture. And as an outcome of that, I became the president of the Häagen-Dazs shop company. So it was my first entree into franchising. Didn't know a thing about it. And I all of a sudden was the president of a franchise organization and absolutely fell in love with it. I loved the entrepreneurial, the fact that we're putting people in business that are their own entrepreneurs, wrapped around a great brand and a system. So I fell in love with it. And then fast forward a couple of years, I had the opportunity to sit on the board of Honey Baked Ham, which has around 400 units, about 200 are corporate owned, 200 are franchise. And they had been family run for 59 years. And they were looking to bring in an outside CEO. So I was their first outside CEO, had a great run there. It's a wonderful brand, but they had been running it in 3 distinct regions of the country, all different. So there were different supply chains and websites and the like. So I was able to hire a great team, bring a great team together, and we significantly improved profitability and our service to our franchisees. So did that. And then was the CEO of Pure Barr. So Pure Barr, as you may know, is the second biggest boutique fitness on the planet with around 520 open units. Again, took over that business when we had declining same-store sales. Again, put a great team together around that. And then we turned that around. We launched Pure Barre On Demand, so an omni-channel offer, accelerated our retail, our athleisure presence, and just created a great team and built great relationships with franchisees. So the thing I love about franchising is I still have friends from Honey Baked Ham, from Häagen-Dazs shops, from Pure Barre that I stay in touch with all the time. So love that. And then, we sold that business to Exponential Fitness. We sold Pure Barre, and I found myself back in Michigan. And I had heard of Franworth, didn't know John Rocci, didn't know Franworth, but I'd heard of them. So located right in downtown Ann Arbor. So I had a meeting with CEO and founder John Rocci and for lunch. And that lunch turned into a 4.5-hour meeting. And by the end of it, I was asked to be the CEO of the Lash Lounge. The Lash Lounge is just a wonderful brand. The founder, Anna Phillips, had created it and opened, I think at that time had about 19 units open, but we had sold more than 300 and was really looking for a CEO that had grown things. So I partnered with the founder, Anna, and we wrapped what Franworth does is partner with these small brands and wrap a whole franchising and scaling system around them. And so today it's stronger than ever, more than 100 open, has rebounded back from COVID like you wouldn't believe. More than 90% are open, higher demand than when we went in, believe it or not. So that's the story of how I got here. So I ran that business for a while. Then best decision we ever made, we brought in Meg Roberts, who I think has been a guest on your show. Meg used to run Molly Maid, is now the president and CEO of the Lash Lounge, and enabled me to step into a different role at Franworth. And so now I'm the coach. I coach all of our different CEOs and presidents and lead our functional team. We've got some 450 years of franchise experience on our team. So that's how it got me here.
All right, so 2 comments. You don't look a day over 55, let alone 450. Never mind. So, sorry, got to interject some humor here.
Sounds good. No, I like that. All right, yeah, you nailed it with the 55. I'm for sure 55, and my team kids me all the time about, Dave, does that 450 years of experience include you? I'm like, yes, it includes me in that count for sure. And there's about 37 of us. So, we've got some pretty good, on average 15 years of franchise experience per person on the team. So it is a seasoned, not quite as seasoned as me, but certainly seasoned.
So you mentioned Meg, and Meg occupies a special place in our hearts because when she was with Molly Maid, she was the second guest we ever had on, and Then after she'd been at Lash Lounge for I think about a year, she was on recently, so she kind of closed that loop. So she's kind of I actually had to write her bio the first time she was on. So she's got
she's a rock star. There's no question. And built, I think if you look at the Lash Lounge today, it's just if you could build, and we did this, right? If you could build the prototypical team to support a franchise, you would build it around someone like Meg, who, has the franchisees front and center. I mean, she through this period, believe it or not, right? We were down. Every Lash Lounge was closed March and April. And what I will tell you, there's no doubt, and franchisees on the Lash Lounge team would attest to this, the support that they got, that Meg and her team gave to the Lash Lounge was just world class. And they are closer. They feel more confident in the future of the business coming out of COVID than they did going in. And I don't think there are many brands that can say that they're stronger coming out than going in. And it really is a testament to what Franworth wrapped around and built the bones of the infrastructure. And then now Meg has really built out, really one of the strongest teams in franchising to go support it.
So now here's the question. What's the hardest thing about Meg to manage?
Wow. Listen, I'm sure Meg is watching, so thanks a lot for that. And a bunch of her team. Meg is and Meg and I have gone at things from different perspectives from time to time. So I think Meg is one of those people who, great motivational leader, and always advocates for the business, the brand, the founder, and the franchisees. And oftentimes I have to play devil's advocate to go advocate for the business, for, the future and where we're going. And so I think those discussions, Fred, I think if they're best held, if you can have some creative tension between that, how do you balance the balance of the franchisor and the franchisee and have a real robust discussion about that? I think those are the most value added for everybody. And so I think that's the thing I love about Meg is she will have an opinion, but she will also listen and, respect people that have different experiences. And then we'll hash it out. And then we always come out of it better. I respect her immensely. And I think she the same for me. And so I think that's the best thing to say about that is that she's always willing to have the tough conversation, but always with that, the franchisee and the business and first and forefront.
So when you say
and I think you've got to have both of those elements, don't you think? I love the term creative tension because it makes it a positive, but I think anything that just is too easy doesn't ever go as well. So I think that dynamic is really important to have both perspectives pushing each other toward the right answer. Yeah,
you don't want an organization full of yes people. Right. You don't, iron sharpens iron. There's every, phrase you can come up with, but I think it's very true. When we had a session earlier today, frankly, we were on the phone talking about our strategy and how we're going to come out of COVID differently and better than before. What needs to change in our business model, how we support our franchisee, how we support our franchisors. And I love creating a diverse team. I think there's so much to creating diversity. There's been a lot, obviously, in the news with George Floyd and everything that's come about, and we've embraced that. We at Franworth dove right in. I truly believe that you have to have a diversity of thought and opinion and race and color and creed and background. Mm-hmm. Those make companies better when you invite all that in and you have the creative tension, and then better things come of it. We've created a diversity and inclusion team. We just had a volunteer event last week to go act. We're doing a book club on Nelson Mandela's book. We've embraced it, but we also embrace diversity of thought when we're talking through business ideas. So yeah, I'm a big believer in that.
So does
I love it. Go ahead.
Does creative tension include throwing staplers at each other?
Yeah, you got to be quick. I think that's one of the things that we've got a couple of fitness concepts, Fred, and we were just talking about that, before the show opened, and that creates those quick twitch muscles to be able to dodge the staplers coming at you.
I know at least one listener has thrown staplers at me in that mode of creative tension, so I'm glad to know that actually works.
There are different ways to release those tensions. I think probably visiting a boutique beauty or boutique fitness salon would be my recommended, other than throwing objects at one another.
You get good reflexes.
All those 30 years that I was doing ballet, that was my attention release for sure. So
Exactly.
I totally can relate to what y'all are talking about. So in terms of COVID and leadership, what do you think is the most effective? In my magazine and things, we've been talking a lot about grit and the elements of grit and being able, adaptability and tenacity and, passion and purpose and all those things. So what do you think have been the most effective leadership techniques to get your teams through COVID, and how have you done that?
It's a great question. I agree with you. It is about grit. I think first and foremost, you need as a leader, you've got to have a visible leader. You've got to have someone in front. I try to do this. I've coached all of our CEOs on being this, about being in front and truly being a leader, acknowledging the current state with openness and say, hey, this is what's going on, setting really crisp goals. I'm a big believer in the rule of three, veni, vidi, vici, same I came, I saw, conquered, just do it. I mean, there's something powerful about threes that we can remember. And so I often set goals in threes. We did that during COVID. We said, number one for us, health and safety of our team. Number two, profit protection, to make sure we can survive as the franchisor. And third, just making sure that we're engaging our clients and our end consumers. And so that, I think, super clear goals from the top. And literally I start every meeting, even now, even today, 4 months into this thing, with just reflecting on our goals, and we make sure we're, living up to those. I think also you've got to be aware that in times of crisis, in times of uncertainty, that you've got to be cognizant of the decisions you're making and the legacy that you're leaving. Mm-hmm. People look to leaders in times of crisis for, are they panicking and jumping around, or can they calmly lead and say, hey, here are the principles that we're going to lean on, and true character, I believe, is revealed in times of stress. And I think you've also got to look for touch points. We're all dispersed, right? We've been dispersed here for 4 months. And so in periods of uncertainty, you've got to find ways to touch your team and touch your clients. So we had businesses that were evolving every day and getting creative about how do you go touch your end consumer in a different way. And then I think the last thing is people react different ways to stress, but I think about it in three ways. I think you've got to engage people's heads. So you've got to get people really to understand, where are we going as a company? What has to change? You've got to engage people's hearts so they know that you care about them personally and their well-being. I mean, that's why we put health and safety first. But then importantly, you've got to think about their hands. People in times of uncertainty, some people clam up. They don't know what to do. And I feel like the best way through an uncertain period is get people to work, get their hands busy doing whatever it is. So that, making sure you're capturing heads and heart, which a lot of people in leadership talk about, but I think also making sure you're keeping people working toward the next, the new normal. We talk about that all the time. We're in a new normal. We're having virtual discovery days. We're having to invent new ways to engage with our clients. And so how do you get people's hands busy on that? And then the last thing is you just gotta, Fred, you'll embrace this. You gotta have fun. You can't, everything can't be serious. You gotta have fun, and you gotta get out and you gotta engage in your community and put on your Minnesota Viking horns. But you gotta have
Chicago Viking, but that's okay.
Okay.
I'm a Bears fan. I'm sorry. People will be egging my daughter's house if I say I'm a Vikings fan. That'd be a bad thing. All right, for right now, we're going to take a bit of a break. Tell the people that are sitting on the Link Local Network or Pillars of Franchising chat, you can keep chatting at me and sending questions, or you can dial into 323-580-5755. That's 323-580-5755. Talk to our technical producer, Heidi, and we'll get your questions on the air. And now, word from a sponsor.
The Franchise Woman is a bi-monthly digital magazine that empowers women as they navigate the franchising industry by providing relevant news, tools, advice, and inspiration. We are a resource for women who are seeking to own their own businesses, improve their existing businesses, find creative solutions, and take advantage of franchise opportunities. We feature women in the business who best exemplify our ideals and have something to teach our readers. In addition to our exclusive articles relating to the female entrepreneur, we also feature brands that are geared for women. Women have become the fastest growing sector in business ownership and have become a powerful, influenceable force fueling the economy. The Franchise Women will give you the news that is relevant to you to help you navigate the path of successful franchise ownership. By women, for women, and about women. We are the Franchise Women. Join us today at www.thefranchisewoman.com.
And want to again give a shout out to Link Local Network. Let everyone know that Caffeinated Connections is now virtual every Tuesday morning. Need a network? Hang out, go to caffeinatedconnections.com. We run from 7:30 a.m. Pacific time to 8:45 a.m. Pacific time. Yeah, like we're going to change. So show up, have coffee, meet interesting people, and network.
Hey, franchise owners. How's your local marketing? Do you feel like you need some help keeping up with your social media posts and comments and reviews? Do you wonder if you could be doing more to attract local customers? Are you able to identify new move-ins to your local area? At Westvyne, we help franchisees like you reach more local customers through digital marketing. With daily monitoring, creative content, and ad placement, and customer data intelligence, we'll get your business in front of the people who want your products or services. We also work with franchisors who need an agency to handle the digital marketing for all of their locations. If you're ready to reach more local customers, give us a call at 805-265-5440 or visit us at westvyne.com. That's 805-265-5440 or westvyne.com.
And we're back. Interesting topic. Elizabeth?
Interesting topic.
Yeah.
Which one was that, Fred?
Well, Franworth in general.
Well, one thing
Go ahead.
Franworth in general, it is. And here's one thing I'm interested in. In the magazine this month, we're talking about success, and it's focused on women. But in general, defining it, I think it's an interesting question to ask people. Number one, how do you think you achieve it? And number two, how do you define it? Not just for yourself, but also in your professional life. And particularly now when we're in COVID and all these things, success might look a little differently than it has looked before. So what do you have to say about that in terms of Franworth and your brands and then your specific career?
Oh, thank you. I think I'll talk about the Franworth first and how a role we play in success of us and others. Mm. The way to think about Franworth is we're an incubator, a partner to emerging brands. And so we find brands, and most of them, I just heard your commercial for women in business. Mm-hmm. Most of our brands are women founded or women led. They all are, in fact. So the Lash Lounge we talked about, Anna Phillips founded it. Madison Reed, as some of you have heard, Amy Arrett and the Color business, SCOA, Andrea Scott. Those are our three beauty brands. We've got two in boutique, we've got Title Boxing. We also have City Row, again, woman founded, the Barcode, women founded, women led. So, one of the things that we hold true is allow that these founders the ability to have their dreams come true. Every one of these founders had a great idea, and in their own modality, whether it's providing lashes or massage or facials or hair color or boutique fitness, and had several units that were very successful, but they wanted to grow. They wanted to scale, to bring their baby, their idea out. And they could have sold to private equity. These businesses are all good enough to have sold to private equity and bring in outside investment. But often you sell to private equity and the founder has a different voice. And so one of the ways that we define success is by allowing the founder's voice to be heard and their dreams to be realized and wrap around them an infrastructure that allows that to be true. So I'll talk about SCOA for a minute. SCOA is a brand that's a facial only brand founded by Andrea Scott, a Canadian business. She's created this great concept in Canada, but wants to bring it to the US. Boutique beauty in general is booming. The Dry Bar really started it with just blowout bars. Who knew you would go to a store just to have your hair blown out? They don't cut, they don't color, they just blow it out. But it's an amazing business. The Lash Lounge followed with eyelash only salon. We now have Madison Reed color bars, color only salons, and we're going to bring facial only to the US, booming business. But Andrea wanted to scale. And so her view of success is to grow it and to bring facial only and change lives in that way. Strong culture, strong values, great business. So how we brought her success in this venture is growing her business by wrapping all the things that Franworth does around it: franchise sales, real estate and construction, finance, marketing, supply chain, all these things. We brought her products. It's cool. It's 50% product, 50% service. We brought her product into our distribution network. So franchisees, one click and they get it delivered. We've built a design and construction manual for her. We're beginning to sell in the US now with her. We've got marketing that we're bringing new ways for lead gen to happen for the franchisee. So we're wrapping all that stuff around. So that for us is success, to allow these women-led businesses primarily to grow and have these things come to life, but have the founders be a part of it. And I think that's what separates Franworth. We're not just a consultant that tells the brands what to do. We're not a private equity company that injects capital and then maybe takes control. We absolutely come alongside. And so in every one of our brands, the founder is part of the day-to-day decision, and in many cases leading the business. Some cases we need to bring in an outside CEO like a Meg to run it, but in every case the founder's engaged to grow. So that's, I think, the way Franworth would define success. And we were founded on mentorship. So that hopefully you can see that tie. That mentorship is prevalent in everything we do. We have an intern program called Launch. So we have, I think, 14 interns this summer who've joined us. I mean, again, we're only a 37-person team. We have 14 interns who we've given an opportunity to have a mentor, and they work on real stuff. I mean, for SCOA, we just did a market assessment, and one of our interns, Bryn, did that market assessment, competitive assessment. So we give interns real work in this crazy time, right? That, we're all remote, but we give back to the community. So for me personally, I've spent a lot of time thinking about success versus significance in my life. I spent much of 2019 with that, thinking about that. I've had a good career, a good run, and have the titles, and the more that, and often that's a climb. Often that's about me and, all the worldly stuff about, having the houses and the cars and the income and the title. But the older I get, and hopefully the wiser I get, I realize it's really not about me. It's about us and we. And so I spend most of my time now thinking about, how do I go coach up one of the persons on the team? How do I go coach up one of our brand leaders? And try to create value that way. So that's a big piece for me about, less about me, more about us and how can we do stuff together. That's one of the things I loved about Franworth when I walked in for that lunch I told you about. It's prevalent. It's a family. We take care of each other. We celebrate together. We, grieve together. We do it together, much like a family. And that's who you do business with is as important as what it is you're doing, in my view. And so I've been very selective about how do I spend my time, with whom do I spend my time, and I keep that significance. Can we be working on something of significance along the way?
I love that. I think the idea that success is allowing these, particularly women founders, to have that voice. As a writer, I'm a huge person about voice, and with 5 children, that's one of the things I instill in them, is that you have a voice, you need to use it, hopefully for good. So I really find that appealing that was your definition of success. And then transitioning into what you said about not being all about you as you get older and wiser. We were talking before we started the show about some philanthropy that you're doing, which is putting that in action. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I spent a year really thinking hard and studying about myself. How I went through this program called Halftime. It's a great program. It's a faith-based organization. It's a great book by Bob Buford. It's been around forever, millions of copies sold, but it talks about how do you live your first half of your life, often for worldly success, but the second half around more significance. So I spent a lot of my time thinking about that. Who am I? How am I gifted? What's my vocation? And develop my mission. And my mission is very much about how do I go honor God and my family, but how? And I've came up with two ways. One is life lessons. So I have this blog called lessonsonpurpose.com. And, you know, I'm not a writer like you, but I can write, you know, so I do write some thoughts down from some life lessons. My kids tease me all the time. I got 3 kids about, I'm like, oh, here's a life lesson. And they kid me about it, but I'm like, come on, I've got some things to say. So I've started to write some of them down. So that's one way is to share life lessons. And so when I pick an opportunity to lead, I often, you know, try to embed a life lesson in there and do that most of the day. But then the other side of it is I wanted to leverage what we've built in franchising, which is how do you scale stuff? How do you go take something that's a great idea and move it in and scale it and make it bigger? So I created a nonprofit company called Franchise for Good. So we just started it. And the whole idea is to take what we do in franchising so well, the component parts of how do you scale something? How do you develop a playbook? How do you, bring some talent around it? How do you do a market assessment, a tight strategy, whatever it is, and apply that at nonprofits? So we've landed our first customer at Franchise for Good. It's a company called Colorado Home Building Academy. Pat Hamill is the founder of that. He actually is the CEO of Oakwood Homes, which is one of the world's largest home builders. They're owned by Berkshire Hathaway. So he's one of the 20 CEOs that work for Warren Buffett. But he came up with this idea of the Colorado Home Building Academy, which is how do I go? He's builds houses, builds 1,500 homes a year. Like never has enough labor. And he's from Denver. If you look at Denver, there's a big employed and unemployment problem. So he created an academy that trains these under and unemployed people and puts them in trade jobs, teaches them how to be a plumber, an electrician, a carpenter. And so he and I met. So his vision he wants to go trade 1 million people in trade jobs. I've got this nonprofit to scale. We came together and we've partnered. So we're building out 20 of these. Our vision is to go create 1 million, train up 1 million people in trade jobs. And so this is just, I love this, because it's about others. But what's cool about it is it's using the principles that we all use and is used in every one of our businesses at Franworth. How do you scale those tools? And now we're applying it to the nonprofit. So in the trade job creation, and again, timing is everything. Just so happens there's a lot of government money being thrown at trade, trade training. People are going to be looking for roles. So, it's a great time to buy a franchise because you can go be your own boss. And it's also a great time to go invest in yourself and skill yourself up. So, that's just one example of, how at Franworth we try to mentor, give back in new and innovative ways.
So on your blog site, lessonsonpurpose.com, everyone normally asks what's the top tip, and I'm not going to ask the question everyone asks. What I'm going to ask is, what tip on leadership that have you given that most people don't know? So in other words, the least known tip on leadership you've got.
Oh, yeah.
That's worth something.
That's a good one. There's one in there I wrote on endurance because I was in the middle of this COVID thing. One of my favorite stories is Ernest Shackleton, and he's trying to be the first guy to get across the South Pole, and he failed, and his boat got stuck and frozen in, and so now all of a sudden his goal changed quickly to saving the lives of the 29 people on his boat. that's a gritty pivot, right? When we're talking about grit, we're talking about pivots. All of a sudden, he was trying to be the first guy to get to the South Pole. Now, all of a sudden, he's trying to save lives. And so I took that. I love that story. And so I took that. And I think a couple of life lessons that are embedded in that article are, you've got to, as a young leader, I often thought about appearances and, image and things like that. And one of the things I say in there, it's really, leadership's about the steak. It's not about the sizzle, right? It's easy to talk about stuff. It's easy to make it look good, and spin something, but it's way harder to do it, to have this steak. And I think I remind people on my team all the time about that. I'm like, yeah, okay, that's a great marketing piece, and anybody can say they can do it, but can you do it? Can you add value? And I think that, again, in our businesses, we try to do that. We try to we're not advisors as much as we are coaches, and we're putting a shoulder with our founders and their teams to go build it. And I think so I would say that and execution, Fred. I mean, just back to you can't just talk about it. You have to actually employ it and execute. So maybe that'll be a book someday. It's a blog now, but that's one I don't think a ton of people talk about. So hopefully that's helpful.
Okay. With that, we'll go to our next and final, assuming I can find it, commercial break. Just a reminder, folks, 580-5755. How many times have I been saying that? Miss it? Ugh. And here we go.
Ever wonder how successful business people get educated about franchise business options? The Franchise Consulting Company is over 100 franchise professionals with more than 2,000 years of franchise experience.
Zach and Alex are coming.
We help our clients select and investigate franchise companies.
Clean up the bathroom.
And like a realtor, our services are free of charge to you. Our fees are paid by the seller. Reach out to us to learn more and get a free copy of the Franchise MBA, the #1 bestseller and highest reviewed book on Amazon in the franchise category. Our website is thefranchiseconsultingcompany.com, or feel free to call us on 800-321-6072.
Fred, we can't hear you.
Can't hear me. Whoa. There's my copy
Now we
of
can.
Pillars of Franchising. Great book. Reminder, you can call in 323-580-5755. Wow, I love hitting the wrong mute button. Oh, well. Go ahead, Elizabeth, while I check some things.
Okay. Well, I wanted to hit a little bit more on the mentorship that you talked about, that Franworth is founded on mentorship. In terms of your life and success, have you had any really great mentors personally that have helped you down your life path?
I've had a few. Some of them have come from, all over. I've had coaches. In my life, I enjoy athletics, and so I've always had coaches that have pushed me beyond where I ever thought I could be pushed. So, early days, I had that. One of the best mentors in my life was my godfather, Dick Sheevel. He was a Korean war vet and fighter pilot, and it's funny. He taught me in some ways how to be irreverent and take some chances. So he was a guy. He taught me how to juggle. He taught me how that first time in a plane, in a private plane, and handed me the wheel like I'm a 12-year-old kid. I don't know what to do. Taught me that lines sometimes, like, don't always go to follow everybody else in the line that everyone else is waiting in. Like, take a look, and maybe there's a shorter one, or so lines aren't necessarily all for us. So he taught me to be not so into my own self and be so serious. Great mentor. Another one was the first one in my life was a guy named Jeff Seaman, who was a Minnesota. Sorry about the Viking reference again, but a Minnesota Viking. and really turned his life from some real success as one of the, purple people eaters and middle linebacker for the Vikings, but then turned his life and really he was a Sunday school teacher of mine. And so he was one of the first in my life that talked about significance versus success. And then frankly, the people that I work with today, I look for mentors, everywhere I go. The board of Franworth, John Rocci, our founder, he and I are wired very different. John is an entrepreneur. He's a dreamer, but motivates me and fires me up every day. David Barr is on our board. Many of you know him. He's the last chair of the International Franchise Association, multi-unit franchisee. He inspires me all the time with his passion and smarts and attention to detail. And then the team, our founders. Again, I'm wired to be the optimizer, to be the one that's connecting the dots. And I get inspired and mentored all the time by these entrepreneurs who have a dream, and they're not going to let anything stand in the way. So I'm surrounded by mentors. And then probably the biggest one in my life is my wife. My wife's a college professor. We've married 32 years. And I mean, her whole emphasis in her life is and purpose is giving back to other women. So her PhDs in the wage gap differential, and so how to think in a big way. And she's a lifelong educator, and so continues to give her life to her sweet spot as young women in their kind of teens and early 20s. I see mentors all around me.
Where does she teach?
She taught for 20 years at Hamline University in St. Paul. Okay. And then now she's on the board of trustees there. So, remains engaged there.
Not you,
I love
that
answer, of course. It's a very nice compliment for a husband to say that about his spouse. So I think that's just really nice. It sounds like you have a great relationship. Yeah. Fred, did you have a question in waiting?
Well, yeah, I got two. Not University of Michigan? Man, it must be rough on football weekends. So, with COVID-19, there's been a lot of franchises, franchisors, franchisees who have been hit hard. How is the franchising industry as a whole, having to change going forward? Because, as you said, this is the new normal, and we'll probably never go back to the old normal.
Yeah, great question. I think we're all changing, and I think every business, I'm sure, is looking critically at the elements of their business that need to change. I think I mentioned earlier that our leadership team at Franworth spent much of the morning thinking about that. Our first reaction was to stick to those principles about protecting the team. So I think you do have to think about how do you keep your team safe in the short term. So we do think about that a lot. We've redesigned our office. We've got shifts of people, how they go in and out. We've got obviously all the protective stuff. So that's been one pivot. Another pivot has been in our businesses that we've had to adjust to. And every single business, we've had to make a pretty significant move. We got people down quickly. We were very active on the Hill about making sure that PPP, the second round of PPP, got approved. David Barr was on the Hill working that on our behalf and all of our behalfs. And so we made sure that our franchisees were nimble enough to cut costs, talk to their landlords about getting out of leases, getting PPP. So we jumped into action early to help them shut down well, understand the difference about, do you furlough, lay people off? How does that work? Getting after PPP. And we had 95% success rate about people that got PPP because of that effort across all of our brands. And then on the business. So I talked about one of our three principles was keeping the clients engaged. So in every case, in the Lash Lounge, we stepped up communication. We wanted to keep our estheticians crisp, so had them ways that they could practice doing lashing at home. At City Row, we created a live class. Luckily, we saw this coming, so we stood up a bunch of live classes, and now we've enabled our City Row franchisees. When we had just opened 9 units a couple of months, and all of a sudden COVID hit. So we had to pivot quickly, but give them new ways to get revenue. We started a rent-a-rower program where you could go rent a rower, take it home. We started live classes. We started outdoor classes. We just created new ways to do business. In our SCOA business, that's a facial business. Great franchise, but it's 50% retail and 50% service. So we quickly had to pivot and say, okay, what can we do with our retail business to get it into the hands of our consumers? So our founder, Andrea Scott, was doing demos online. We were pushing out and making it able for either consumers to come to our store and just buy the retail products that are also used on their face. So in every one of our cases, we pushed on that. In many ways, thought about omni-channel. Our Madison Reed brand is digitally native, so it started with online hair color, and now we're building out physical color bars. Our City Row business already had embedded, our barcode business already had embedded a smaller online version, so we ramped those up. So we made sure that most of our businesses, we can touch the customer digitally, and we can also touch them physically. And so we obviously had to flex that business up. So that's the way that we've been pivoting. I think all of us now are thinking about what changes. We've been doing virtual discovery days. So that's been a challenge. One of the things that we built Franworth and our Franworth headquarters around doing discovery days with open spaces and, places for people to tuck in and common areas. And now we're doing them online. So that's been a big one. And I see discovery days happening virtually for quite some time. Business travel. I'm actually taking a business trip next week, but I haven't been on one since March. So how do you get this type of connection with people digitally? And so we're coming up with new and creative ways to engage with our franchisees digitally. And I think technology is certainly going to play a part in it. We've accelerated our work around business intelligence and KPIs. So to be able to give better access to our franchisees, the Lash Lounge is a great example of that. SCO is a great example of that, and City Row. All of them, we've put a business intelligence layer on top of the data to give our franchisees better access to who's doing things better than me, how do I rank, how can I do a deep dive, and then our franchise business managers, those field support people, can dive in and help our franchisees. So, yeah, and these investments in technology, I think, will continue. So the real question is what's going to stick? I think elements of all this is going to stick. I think better data. I think better technical tools to complement those in-person ones. I think virtual D-Days have been, for us, very effective. We have Lash Lounge, SCO, and City Row all selling today. We've closed deals in every single one of those, multiple deals, during this COVID period. And I think that's in large part testament to the macro. So boutique beauty, boutique fitness is here to stay. They've survived past downturns. In many cases, demand, I think I mentioned before, Lash Lounge, we've reopened 90% of them, and the demand is even higher coming out. There's pent-up demand than going in. So some things are going to stick, but some things, people still want to work out. People still want to take care of their beauty. And so we're itching to get back to treating people in person as well.
All right. And we lost it. There we go. You know what this means. It's now time to go down the rabbit hole. So, I like to take rabbit hole questions out of current events. And today, I forget which, I saw an article in the paper that says NASA's tracking I think it's an asteroid that's of a decent enough size to do huge amounts of damage, and it may impact or go past, most likely, the Earth tomorrow. So,
wow.
Assuming this hits and we aren't all wiped out, what will Franworth's first objectives or goals be in the post-asteroid period? From COVID to asteroids.
Wow. Throwing another national disaster at us in the middle of everything. We've already dealt with a couple, haven't we? That's a good one. Well, I hope it doesn't hit. In fact, I'm in my bunkhouse because next door, my son, who works for a tech startup, has got the house and is on his conference calls. He works for this big tech startup that has satellites in space. So I'm going to go talk to him in a minute and find out what's really going on with this asteroid to see if it's coming at us. I think what we would do, most importantly, we would check on our teams. This is how we're wired. The first thing we absolutely would do, and this happened when all the diversity and the stuff post George Floyd started to go down. Certainly happened when COVID started to go down. The first thing we did was check in with people. We gather, we huddle together. We say, how are we doing? Are we okay personally? Let's think about our franchisees, and their end customers, and make sure if there's anything urgently we can do to help them out. And then we back up, and it goes back to head, heart, and hands. We really think about, do we understand the facts about what the new strategy is? We talk about the heart to make sure everybody's in a good place and we know where we're going. And then we get people to work. I think and if the asteroid hits, guarantee the next day our hands will be busy doing something, whether that's digging out our friends or, getting, rebuilding something or whatever it is. But we would get heads, hearts, and hands busy.
So, Elizabeth, I will leave the last question to you.
Alrighty. We need our viewers to know how to reach you if they are interested in knowing more about Franworth, one of your brands, what you're doing, your nonprofit, any of those things.
Yeah, great. Most of it you can find on franworth.com. So on there, we share a bit about our brands. One thing I didn't mention is we have a newly launched division called the Professional Services Division. So most of our businesses are these big brands like Lash Lounge and SCO and City Row. But we also support a number of brands, more emerging brands that can come in to tap into some of our support. We have a purchasing arm for leverage purchasing. So you can check out our Professional Services Division there. My email is dave@franworth.com, not complicated. And then my blog is lessonsonpurpose.com. So check it out. Let me know what you think and give me an idea for the next life lesson.
Sounds perfect. Thank you so much for your time. This has been a really great interview. I feel like you're one of the first guests I've taken notes while interviewing because I'm interested in going to see more about some of these things. So thank you. Thank you for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Ray would say all the information's on Dave's bio page on the Pillars of Franchising. Thanks for coming up and putting up with us and not being boring, but being educational and entertaining.
All right.
We've been talking with
Dave.
Put my hat
back on for you there.
Yeah.
And Elizabeth didn't have one, which is bad, but she just got her hair done, so okay.
I forgot my hat. Yeah.
Oh, well. We'll be back next week with another interesting guest on